Lloyd Arabella. The Lloyd Arabella was a passenger car produced by the Borgward Group in West Germany between 1959 and 1961. After the company's controversial bankruptcy, the Arabella continued to be produced, albeit in greatly reduced quantities, and branded as the Borgward Arabella until 1963. By the standards of the time and place, it would have been defined as a small family car. The Arabella was the first, and as matters turned out the last, car from Borgward's Lloyd division to be fitted with a 4-cylinder engine. The Arabella was a completely new design, owing nothing to the Lloyd Alexander, which it initially complemented and then replaced in the manufacturer's range. It was developed in just 23 months, which later commentators have asserted was much too short a period in which to identify and eliminate teething troubles ahead of launch. It was constructed using a frame of tube steel with cross members. The front wheels were suspended with double wishbone connectors with coil springs and telescopic shock absorbers, and the back wheels on trailing arms with coil springs with an anti-roll bar. The brakes, considered advanced at the time, were applied using a hydraulic linkage, with 4 light alloy 200mm brake drums. The handbrake was operated mechanically and worked on the rear wheels. Almost as innovative at the time was the specification of tubeless tires on the 13-inch wheels. The rack and pinion steering required 3.36 between opposite locks, and the turning circle was 10.7 meters, 35 feet. The all-steel body followed modern styling trends, and featured a panoramic wraparound rear window and tail fins. There was space for 4 people, although the 2 in the back would have found their headroom rather restricted. The sales material of the time makes much of the car's passive safety features, such as the 2-spoke steering wheel with a recessed central hub, rounded door handles, and a lock on the front seat backs to prevent them from tilting forwards unexpectedly. The padded dashboard and interior window frames were also unusual, and the claim can certainly be made that in terms of secondary safety, U.S. English, crashworthiness, the Lloyd Arabella marked a step forward for cars of this class. The spare wheel was stowed below the rear luggage compartment. It was stowed externally, which meant it could be accessed without having to empty out the luggage locker. It was originally planned to power the Arabella with an upgraded version of the 2-cylinder 4-stroke power unit used in the existing Lloyd Alexander, together with a suitably upgraded gearbox from the same car. However, testing of a chassis equipped with this combination indicated that would not all fit under the hood bonnet of the body, which by that stage had been finalized, so a 4-cylinder boxer motor was hastily developed. The flat configuration of the boxer motor made it suitable for the low bonnet line of the stylish bodywork, but accommodating it in the available space remained a challenge, and the cooling fan had to be squeezed in above the 2 cylinders on the left side of the engine bay. Unlike the smaller existing Lloyd models, the Arabella used water to cool its engine. The gearbox was positioned ahead of the front axle and ahead of the engine, as on the manufacturer's smaller cars, but it had to be redesigned in order to fit beyond the engine in the relatively short engine bay. There was talk of installing the engine transversely, possibly in order to avoid having to redesign the gearbox to make it fit, but in the event the Arabella featured a longitudinally mounted boxer motor. On its introduction in August 1959, the Arabella featured a 4-cylinder 897cc with a stated output of 38 PS, 28 kilowatts, at 4,800 revolutions per minute. During 1960 it was necessary to impose a major price increase, and in order to soften the blow a reduced specification cut price Arabella was launched in July 1960, still with the 897cc engine, but now in a detuned form, offering a maximum power output of only 34 PS, 25 kilowatts, at 4,700 revolutions per minute. The Arabella Deluxe was differentiated by a revised radiator grille, featuring the traditional Borgward rhombus shape at its center. The name Borgward was written on the front of the car in place of the name Lloyd. In October 1960, a deluxe version of the Arabella was added to the range. As far as the technical specifications were concerned, the Arabella Deluxe was differentiated from the standard model by its engine. It was still a 4-cylinder 897cc unit, but maximum power was increased to 45 PS, 33 kilowatts, at 5,300 revolutions per minute. This was achieved by increasing the compression ratio from 1:7 on the standard model to 1:9. That in turn meant that drivers had to pay a little more for their fuel, because the higher compression ratio necessitated the use of the super-grade, high-octane, petrol, gasoline, which was beginning to become available at West German service stations. The other important difference was the fitting of a larger Solex carburetor, 34 psi in place of the 28 mm carburetor used for the standard cars. The result was a useful improvement in performance, with the top speed increased from 120 km per hour to 133 km per hour, from 75 miles per hour to 83 miles per hour, while the standing start time to 100 km per hour was reduced from 28 to 23 seconds. The Arabella Deluxe was in these respects significantly brisker than more expensive, albeit larger and heavier, cars such as the Ford Taunus or, more importantly, the class-defining Volkswagen with its advertised top speed, in 1960, of only 112 km per hour, 70 miles per hour, and leisurely standing start time to 100 km per hour of 38 seconds. From the outside, the Arabella Deluxe was differentiated by a revised radiator grille, featuring the traditional Borgward rhombus shape at its center, and the name Borgward was written on the front of the car in place of the name Lloyd, even though sources state that the car was only formally rebranded as the Borgward Arabella in 1961. It is possible that the need to clear unsold stocks of new cars meant that any announcement of the rebranding was deferred so that the cars identified with the Lloyd name on the front could be sold, as new cars, first. The Lloyd Sport Coupe is generally identified, in retrospect, as a coupe version of the Lloyd Arabella. In fact, the Sport Coupe, with a stylish body produced by Pietro Frue of Turin, made its debut at the Turin Motor Show in November 1958. At that stage it was powered by the 596cc two-stroke engine from the Lloyd Alexander TS, but the DM6000 asking price combined with the rustic sound and performance from the power unit made the car unsellable. However, by this time the manufacturers had given Frue firm orders for 50 of the coupe bodies, and so the stylish little sport coupe reappeared at the Frankfurt Motor Show in September 1959, now as a coupe version of the Arabella. By the time the cars were actually disposed of, they were powered by the 45 PS, 33 kilowatts, high compression engine version of the Arabella.